Good morning and welcome to this panel session on Tech for Resilience, part of the Can-Do Innovation Summit. I'm Brian Hills, Deputy CEO of the Data Lab Innovation Centre. And in this session, we're going to look at embracing technologies, whether it's data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or intelligent automation. These things are more important than ever for businesses to stay competitive and also as tools to build back through the current pandemic that we're in at the moment. So in this session, we're going to hear from a panel of 3 experts on how you as a SME can start on your journey to use those technologies to help optimize how you operate and build resilience within your organization. So I'm delighted to welcome 3 panelists and experts that work across the Scottish ecosystem and beyond. We have Joe Watts, founder and CEO of Effini, who use data and analysis to drive businesses forward. We have Alex Croucher, Director of VKY Intelligent Automation, providing consulting through to fully managed services for intelligent automation solutions. And we have Danae Shell, co-founder and CEO of Valla, a legal tech company that brings together data-driven insights to the legal market. Hi, Joe, Alex, and Danae.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to open up with a question really on kind of painting the picture of this for the audience. So how can these technologies have a positive impact on business? I'd really like to give you, for you to give an example of a kind of a case study or how you see this kind of highlighted in the areas that you operate in. So Alex, from your perspective on intelligent automation, can you give us a great compelling example for our audience?
I think from an intelligent automation perspective, it's pretty straightforward. It's all about resilience. When people are at risk of illness or absence or anything else, if you can automate some of those key person dependencies in the simple parts of their role, it means that people are freed up to perform those more strategic aspects, the problem solving, the difficult things, the rapid change like we've experienced in the last year. So they're not having to worry about the mundane tasks that they've got. So that's the risk side. You've then got the bounce back, which is the improvement in productivity. Freeing people up to do the creative elements, scaling the business. There's been a lot of investment in innovation across Scotland. There's been a lot of funds available to SMEs, so the organisations that are using that money will bounce back. They will grow, and these new ideas they will want to scale. And automation is there to help them scale, so they're not having to increase headcount. They can improve their multipliers and their overall operational efficiency.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And Joe, from your perspective, you work with a lot of data machine learning SMEs around the country. Can you give a compelling example or use case from your area?
Yeah, so sure. So to us, I think one of the biggest benefits of the use of data is that ability to provide visibility and transparency of what's going on. And then on top of that, once you've got visibility and transparency, you end up having control and oversight, and then you're able to act quickly. And I think that's nowadays that's really important because we're not necessarily either seeing our staff or seeing our clients. And one of the examples that we've currently been working on is we've done quite a few projects over the course of the last year around bringing data together from multiple sources into some sort of internal cloud-based system which would belong to the company that we're working with. And it's great that one of the things we're seeing is it's actually really interesting to see that the companies and charities we've worked with have even had the foresight to do this kind of thing and to start thinking about wanting to bring some of their data in-house and invest in it. But we spend a lot of time with them talking about the value that data can bring to them and how important it's going to be. But what we've sort of seen, I suppose, as part of these projects is that the value has actually been more than we even expected. So we've sort of done that exercise of bringing it all together and bringing it from different third-party sources into a cloud-based environment and displaying it all in a dashboard or something like that. And it has really had an absolutely momentous impact on the organisation that we've worked with. Much more positive than we could ever have envisaged. and what they're doing is they're able to, they're able to see what's going on, and they're able to make decisions really quickly. And suddenly they're not spending lots of time manually producing metrics or reports. And I think one of the critical things is that they now trust the data that they're seeing. So previously they didn't have any trust in the data, and they know that it's up to date and they can act on it in real time. Real time, we're saying something like a daily update is sufficient for most organizations to act on their data. So you don't have to do anything too clever. Just bringing it and looking at it is the kind of thing that really adds value from data.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And for yourself, Danae, you're working in the legal space, which I guess many of us might regard as kind of tech laggards traditionally. So how are you disrupting that space and helping, and how would you paint a positive impact on potential customers of your product?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd start before legal and start at where Kate and my co-founder and I first worked together at Free Agent, which was working with accountants. And you can see the same impact of smart automation and things like that. We saw it in the accountancy space, and now we're really trying to bring it to the legal space. And what you found there was an industry that transitioned from people literally bringing in like grocery bags full of receipts to the bookkeepers manually typing that information in so that it became machine readable essentially. And then some really basic kind of just accountancy stuff performed by humans done on top of that. And now what we have is a lot of that data is automated directly from bank feeds. Other information is automated from companies like Expensify and things like that. The user now does that final bit of input rather than sending receipts and things like that. They might snap a picture of a receipt on their phone. And then what the accountants are able to do is they're able to focus on that higher part of the value, and that lower level of the value that they were doing, they can scale that so much more. They can get so many more customers than they were able to get before, because things like VAT reminders and the basics of what they had to keep track of before, that's taken care of by the automation, by knowing exactly what kind of a customer it is and the profile of their books. And so they're really able to focus on that higher value advice. And that's really how we're seeing the legal space as well, is there's a lot of basic questions that data could help people answer even before the lawyer has to get too involved, and then they can focus on that higher value advice. And really the key thing for both those accountants and the lawyers is it means that they can serve more people. A lot of people need an accountant, and even more people need a lawyer. And hopefully this means, as Alex was speaking to, they can scale so much better. So that's kind of how we're seeing that.
Great, thank you, Danae. So you've convinced me that this is a good thing as an SME. But my next step really would be thinking about, I have limited resources of time, people and money, and this sounds quite a complex thing to do. What would be your advice to companies to help them determine and go through the decisioning process and start on experimenting or using these technologies within their business and determining what is right for them, giving that limiting factor? I wonder, Joe, if you got some experience of this one.
Yeah, we do a lot of this kind of thing around data strategy and answering that question around where do I start and what should I do first. And I think it's not the question of will data be valuable to all companies, but it's probably something around when is the right time to engage on this journey, and when they do engage on the journey, what should they do first. And I think one of the things we're seeing is it's important that they don't do data for the sake of doing data. They really need to have a problem that they want to solve with data. And the benefit of having a problem was obviously that you solve the problem, but it drives that enthusiasm with data, and it brings everybody else on this journey with you. So the kind of problems that data can solve, it could be to support making decisions or improve a process, or perhaps engage better with your customers. So, if you're thinking about where should I start, you can start anywhere. You just have to start, really. So you need to start experimenting with your data, and you really need to be starting out with those kind of problems of, what kind of thing can I do that I can learn as I go? So you don't try and solve the whole world overnight. You really want to be doing something that builds momentum for the next project, allows you to learn, allows you potentially to start bringing more people in, because really you want to be building skills across the whole organization. You don't want to be bringing in just sort of external support, but then when they go, you can't build on that. So you need to be learning as you go. So what we're seeing is one of the most valuable first steps actually is the automation of reporting. It's slightly different to what I'm sure Alex will be talking about in a second, but we see reporting in organizations as something that's very manual, and people have turned it into a bit of an industry. And because it's turned into an industry, it's out of date, and then they can't act on it. And what they're finding is that they spend so much time doing the reporting that they actually, I mean, we were told this by a client about a week ago, that they're not actually looking at the outcome of what they've delivered, because they've never looked at it and said, what does it mean and what decisions should I be making on it? So we often recommend to start with that whole piece around automating their reporting and thinking about their metrics, maybe reviewing their metrics so that they can be automatically reported on, and then just take it from there.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And Alex, from your point of view in intelligent automation, what would you advise in terms of analysing where you should start and getting started and doing it the optimal way with limited resources?
Well, I think part of the point of automation is doing more with limited resources. And we're the three of us, Joe, and Danae, and myself, we're approaching it from a similar problem from slightly different angles. So Joe, obviously is looking very much at the data perspective, but ultimately it's about automating or moving towards automating decisions. And Danae is doing that in the legal side, automating responses to legal questions. We're kind of in the middle and looking at how do we automate those other processes, the manual ones. And it might every organization does data entry. There's even the most I hate to say it, but I do data entry. Whether that's might be invoices both being sent and being received, and how do we process them? Every organization, especially at the moment, is strapped for the right resources, and very often those resources are not in the right place. They need to be building things. They need to be doing. They need to be contributing to the mission of that organization. They don't need to be sitting there doing data entry, but that's what they're doing. So if we can free up that time, we can divert those people to actually delivering the mission of that organization and delivering value to end customers. There's sometimes a temptation within automation to talk about cutting costs, but the vast majority of organizations that we deal with approach it completely differently, and they're looking about productivity. How do we scale? How do we do more? No CEO that I've met wants to run a smaller organization. They want to run a bigger one, a better one. So those are the direction that they want to go in. So that message is absolutely critical when embarking on your journey. And it doesn't have to be agreeing with that's why we're doing it, but you have to be open about why you're doing it. What are you trying to get from it? How do you bring people along on that journey? If you hide it and keep it all super secret, then very quickly people will get suspicious, they won't buy in, they won't help you with the processes, and that change will fall apart and will go nowhere. But the organizations that they talk about it, they avoid hype, they avoid hysteria, they use really simple language, they talk about automation or data. They don't talk about the tools that sit behind it. They're not talking about R or Python or UiPath. They're talking about automation and data and making decisions. Those are things that everybody can understand. So if we can start that conversation across an organization, then that's the first real step in moving towards a more automated and connected business.
Thanks, Alex. And there's a great quote from a guy called Bill Schmartzo over in the US, whose tagline is the Dean of Big Data. And he talks about starting where the fire is in your business. So wherever there's a fire burning, point your energy at that and see if you can do something. And that's a good starting point to get some traction, because the business is focused on there. It's important, and you've got a good use case. But I guess what we see quite a lot is a lot of organizations maybe get some funding to do a pilot or proof of concept, but moving from that, and maybe it's successful, to actually deploying across an organization is a different kettle of fish, really. And I wondered, from your perspective, Danae, in working in legal and getting going there, what do you see as a way to help those organizations expand from a pilot piece into wider organizational deployment? It might be in legal or it might be in finance, as you were talking about previously.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing is to make sure that the pilot really did solve a real problem. And as much as you just said there, Brian, about, it really put out a fire. And as Joe was saying, you've picked a problem that really needs solving. Because otherwise, I think the pilot could just seem, it's difficult to get buy-in afterwards if it didn't feel like it really delivered value. And I think that is such a key part when you're trying to roll something out organizationally. What you really want to be able to say to do a rollout like that is, here is the value that this will bring to our organization. So is it time saved so that we can service X more customers? Is it money saved because we've caught X more mistakes? Like quantifying that actual value that you found, whether it's increased revenue or decrease of problems or whatever it is. I think that's a really key part, because as Alex was saying, there is a lot of hype around data, and there's a lot of just like, it's cool, so let's do it. And I think a lot of people are really cynical to that now. And so if you're kind of saying, let's roll out this data project because it's cool, that's really not going to get a lot of buy-in. But if you're able to say, even almost completely eliminating the fact that data was involved, we did this project, and it turns out we were accidentally making 10 mistakes in any given month in the way that we priced something or something like that. And actually we've already saved, £10,000 a month in our big organization, or whatever it is. That's real money. People understand that. They understand we can service 50 more customers because we've done that. So I think quantify the benefit is really key. And I think I helped roll out an initiative in a big organization, and I was looking after all the messaging. And I think the messaging is really important whether it's a small company or a big company. I think saying, here is the value in the thing, and then saying, here is what we need from you in order to make sure that it succeeds, and here is what you're going to get from it. Here is the benefit that it's going to bring you as a person, not just us as a company. I think that's really key. And I don't think a lot of rollouts explain specifically what you need from each individual person. Like, here is what success looks like, and here is how you contribute to that success. People, that's what they want to understand. Like, they want agency, and they want to understand, like, what do they need to do, and what is it going to do for them? So yeah, that's, I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Danae. And Alex, from your perspective, anything else to build on there? I guess particularly maybe in the cultural aspect, because at the end of the day, once you move through pilot, you're driving a cultural change within a larger organization.
So the cultural change comes with you're being open with them. I touched on it earlier on. I don't want to rehash that. But just to build on one of Danae's points about how you've got your pilot, and how do you roll that out? You need to, as well as having a clear, this is the problem that we solved. You also need to be clear about where can you actually take that. What is the roadmap that comes next? How can you do something different? If you extrapolate, if your pilot is one process, okay, you save 20,000, great. Or you service an extra 20 customers in that week, brilliant. But well, you've got 100 more processes. So what does that actually mean when you extrapolate that up? So it's not just 20 more customers assisted. It's that times 100. It might be that times 1,000. You need to start thinking big. So it's not about just falling into the trap of believing all the hype, but you need to think big enough and use your imagination about where can this go, not just we solved this one problem here and right, okay, well, we'll put that live and then stop. It really needs to be quantifying the longer term, and there will be some assumption in that. There will be some organizations need to they have a vision. It's not all on day one written down to exactly how much you'll save in every process, but you need to have that understanding that this is bigger than just that pilot process. It's bigger than that. There's somewhere you're going. Just as we want to help the business scale, and everybody across the business understands what scaling a business looks like, but they also need to transfer that imaginative view to a technology project. So internally, what does that look like when it's scaled? So okay, great, we've solved this problem today, but how many more problems can we solve in this same method? And I think that's a really important one for when you're looking at the culture across an organization and how we can actually roll something out. It needs to be, what other problems are there that this can help with?
Absolutely, great point. So just building upon that, I guess for all of your combined experience, there'll be some common barriers that you'll be seeing for SMEs to overcome as they go through this journey. So if you were to provide some advice to SMEs on what's the major ones that you might encounter, what would be the top one that you would identify, and how would you recommend tackling it? Maybe start that one with yourself, Joe.
Yeah, so I think organizations think the barriers are technical, but they're actually organizational to get started. So Alex is absolutely right. It's all about the culture, and probably the leadership as well. So it's if you embrace what needs to be done across the organization, then you can start to plan for the sorts of processes that might need to change and the skills that might need to be enhanced or updated. And then the sort of investment that you might need to do those kinds of things, either in software, third parties, or training, or something like that. And I think if you can do all of those things, the barriers then come down. So it's not technical, really. It's all about culture. And I've seen examples in organizations where there's lots of opportunity to make a really big change, but without the leadership, it never happens.
Absolutely. And Danae, you're shaking your head positively on that. Is that your experience? Have you got any other barriers that you'd provide advice on?
Yeah, I think the one that really jumps out to me working in the legal profession is making sure that people aren't financially disincentivized from driving efficiency, and that's really really obvious in legal with the hourly billing model. So just double checking to think, wait, is there a reason why someone wouldn't want to adopt this, because it wouldn't actually serve our bottom line in the way that we're currently structuring our pricing? And so for example, we talk to a lot of law firms who do fixed pricing, because unlike the hourly billing model, they need to deliver a amount of legal work within a certain amount of hours. And that's actually quite difficult for some law firms to do, because historically, they've been used to just being able to bill by the hour and haven't really needed to drive a lot of efficiencies. So I think that's one thing that I'm always attuned to now, is just thinking about things, really simple stuff like how does their manager know that they're doing a good job? What are they measured by? And just checking that kind of success criteria with the goal of the project, and just making sure that everybody's aligned on those goals. It comes back to Joe's point about leadership. Like if I'm working with a lawyer and they're really interested in automation, but their boss is saying increase your hourly billing, then that's never going to work as a project.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. I've got one last question on support that's accessible through Scottish ecosystem, both in terms of financial, network, skill support as well. Obviously, at the Data Lab, we do a lot of that work specifically focusing on data and AI and helping companies access funding and academics and skills and talents and building a community in that space. But it'd be good to get your own insights, what you found beneficial in growing your own businesses in Scotland, and who you found useful to access and collaborate with. And maybe start that one with yourself, Alex.
There's lots and lots of help out there. We were lucky enough to get a Digital Boost grant. And that has really helped us transform the way we think about SEO, and has really helped us. We've been in touch with Data Lab as well, and Interface. who have helped us prepare for other innovation grants that we've submitted ourselves. So there is a huge amount of help out there. Business Gateway can help with some of that, where it's the more general funding. But otherwise, I would recommend speaking to Data Lab or Scotland Is, who are both able to put you in contact with specialists in the field that you're looking at, because obviously not every type of support would suit every company, so they'll be able to help you find someone that is actually right for your organization.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And Danae, from your perspective, you've worked in a few high growth organizations. What have you found useful in the ecosystem to support you?
I rely a lot on my peers, and I think Codebase is always the network that I tap into first when I'm really looking to upskill on something, or just sound someone out about something, or ask, did you do a project similar to this, and things like that. And I tend to tap into Codebase and ask them. They're very good introducers, and ask them, is there anyone who's done a similar project like this? Tap into their community online, and I find that I learn a lot from peers across other organizations and things like that. So that's my first go-to place, really.
And when you're recruiting talent as well, Danae, because talent is short order, it's in high demand in the country, but how do you go about doing that to help you build your business?
Yeah, absolutely. We just hired, we're just finishing a hiring process for a junior data scientist right now. I think recruitment's always one where the more preparation you can do in advance, the better outcome you're going to get. And so for me, networking early for knowing that you're going to need to recruit in a particular role, all that kind of stuff really makes a difference. So I like to go to Women Who Code and Queer Code Scotland and other organizations like that, where there are people who are maybe they're a year out of uni or something like that, but by the time they've met you and by the time they've heard about your job the next years, after they've had their first role or something like that, they're really interested to apply because you've already made that connection. So, it's old fashioned, especially for a data company, but we really rely on the human element when it comes to recruitment.
Great, thank you. And the last word to you, Joe. So you've been involved in a lot of different organizations across the ecosystem as well. Do you want to share some that might be useful to the audience to access and help them move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot out there, but there's one thing to think about is this sort of upskilling of existing staff as well. So I've been quite heavily involved in the SQA's new qualifications around data science at school and college level. And I think some of the materials that are available, or the courses that are there that we're developing, and I'm heavily involved in the development of some of those, are actually quite beneficial too. So people, and obviously something like CodeClan if you're retraining. So CodeClan, obviously has courses for software development and data analytics. So, think about whether you can build those skills in-house or whether you need to bring in from outside as well. Obviously Data Lab have interns and your MSc students, and you can get interns through the academic partnerships and things like that. So there's so much support out there. Really, it's around going to ask for help, using tapping into your network, and it's amazing what will come back.
Fabulous, thank you. Well, that's us out of time, guys. So thank you so much, Joe, Alex, and Danae, for contributing your insights in this session. We're now going to open it up to the audience for a live Q&A. Thank you.